Hi, I'm Jessica Hopper. I am an author, director, producer. And today, for Kickstarter's Women Creators Series running through the month of March, I am talking to NASA aerospace engineer, founder of Girl in Space Club, all around icon. Uh, uh, you know, you did a hugely successful Kickstarter campaign that brought international attention to your efforts. Sabrina Thompson, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Sabrina, can we start very big picture? What's your relationship with space?
Well, so I currently work at NASA as an aerospace engineer, and that's very broad to say. If we want to be very specific, my title is actually astrodynamicist, but I don't say that too often because everybody would be like, "What the heck is that?" But I design orbits and trajectories for space missions. So you can think about, the legendary Katherine Johnson. Um, a lot of people know her from the movie Hidden Figures. And so that's pretty much what I do for NASA. And I've been doing that I've been at NASA for about 13 years. And so I've been doing that for most of the time I've been there.
What is your relationship to space as a person, as a woman?
My relationship to space. So I see space as um, pretty much a open. I want to call it an open field, if you will, which is definitely not the right term, but an open field to explore. There's so many unknowns, and there's so much room for opportunity. So when you think about the fact that now space is open to commercial exploration, right? It allows more people to be involved. It allows more inclusivity, right? So for me, in my artistic side of the brain, it means more imagination, more creativity, more thinking outside the box, and adding in more technology, more innovation, and making space a little bit, bringing it, I mean, it might sound cliche, right? But bringing space down to earth, if you will, right? So that more can be involved who are not traditionally, um, I don't want to say included, but maybe the space wasn't as inclusive as it can be now.
In looking at your work and all that you have done with both your Kickstarter project of trying to or designing, seeking to design the first space travel suit for women, and also just generally your, as you're saying, like the artistic side of you that has really that you really sought to express through Girl in Space. Why do you think that space and the future in space has remained such a salient and important site of inspiration, in particular for Black artists and Black women in particular? I mean, I'm thinking of everything from Sun Ra Space is the Place to the music and costuming of LaBelle to all manner of things in the last few decades. Is there what do you think? What do you think is particularly fertile about space creatively for you as a Black woman and also just Black creators in general?
So I think, I can speak for myself as a young girl growing up in Long Island. I was not introduced to space. That wasn't my world. Fashion, right? You grow up 30 minutes outside of the city, and that's the fashion capital, right? And so I knew about fashion. I knew about Jordans. I knew about style, right? I knew about footwear, and I knew about art, and I knew about sports, and that was my world. And I think for a lot of Black people growing up in America, um, you know, there's this creativity thing that we I don't know if it's innate. I don't know what it is, but just this knack for style. I think it's natural. And so you put us anywhere, we're gonna create. So whether it's in the space realm or wherever we are. And so I just think that a lot of times space just seems too far out, like too far of a reach for kids to imagine, kids of color, especially Black kids, to imagine that they would be a part of that world, right? You can think about the number of African American astronauts that are NASA astronauts that exist, and you think about the fact that you had to be the best of the best of the best of the best and have the right stuff to go to space. It just seemed like, what, why even try? And so now, you think about just sci-fi books. You think about just the fact that, like I mentioned, it's space is open up to the commercial world. So now you see people who pretty much had no experience in space. Now they're astronauts. All right. They've been to space and they get to experience that world. And because they have a background that, that didn't lend itself to space, they see space and they can tell stories from a different perspective than from someone who has more of a technical background, right? Who kind of, you know. So for me, I just see it as another opportunity, another playing field to use creativity. So if you allow more Black women, right? And so again, for me, it's all about women in general. Like, get more of us in there, and by God, if you get more Black women in there, oh my God, right? The amount of creativity, the amount of things that we bring, and I think it's just, um, in general, just thinking outside the box and just bringing space again to places that traditionally, like where I grew up, we didn't even think about space. You know, I could tell you just briefly. I'm in the Baltimore city area, and as part of Girl in Space Club, we have a program called Stimulating Art, and so I have the kids. Basically, I use art and fashion as a way to draw them into space. So I have the kids use art and craft material, and we build astronaut footwear, right? So we imagine what it's like to explore the lunar surface, and then we have the kids do something that they're already interested in footwear, they're already interested in fashion and art, and so we bring that and we combine it with the fact that, okay, now I want you to imagine being an astronaut exploring the lunar surface. So now when they hear on the news, oh, well, NASA's going to back to the moon, NASA. So now they can relate it maybe to something that's a little bit more closer to home. And I think the more you let, the more inclusive space becomes in terms of, allowing us to do more of these things, the more kids can see themselves as kind of infiltrating the space world, if you will, and becoming space explorers or space outfit designers. Who knows, right?
I think it's what you're talking about really has me thinking about the idea of, if you can't see it, you can't be it. And in the case of, having them design and imagine footwear, what would they want? What is needed? What's needed technically in this footwear? But then it's even, the idea from, your Kickstarter campaign of this space travel suit specifically for women, girls. It literally gives them an ability to see something that they can be, to imagine themselves in that space, in that role. And so even though you're saying, fashion and being an artist is all part of this, I mean, this just seems like hugely powerful and intentional. And it really makes sense why your Kickstarter campaign, it created an international audience for what you're doing. Um, so I guess for a question, what what was the thing that you saw as a woman that gave you a sense of permission for Girl in Space, for being an aerospace engineer, for seeking to bring all that you are and all that you have lived to NASA?
Yeah, yeah. I think there are a couple things. So, just going through, my career, and even before my career, I was the kid in high school who was artsy. I was either drawing something or playing basketball, and I did well in school, and I just happened to be the valedictorian. But I didn't know what to do with those skills. I didn't know what to do with the science. I didn't know what to do with the math. It was always, I saw women around me who were nurses, who were teachers, and the men around me, I saw them, maybe working in construction or, very, hands-on type of jobs. And I said, oh, I don't want to do any of these jobs. So I don't really know what I want to study. But it was my art teacher at the end who pretty much put engineering on my radar. I had no clue what an engineer was in the 12th grade, but I knew I had to hurry up and figure out where I wanted to go to college because that was the expectation for me coming from home. So from the start, I was behind. I ended up pursuing engineering, of course, but the whole time I was one of a few, whether it was, one in maybe three black students in my, in my class, in my classes, right? There were three black women in undergrad going through the mechanical engineering curriculum together, and we stuck together, right? There was just some type of camaraderie that we had that we knew, okay, let's help each other get through this. Yeah, exactly. And that didn't stop, right? So you keep going, you go to grad school, and then it's like, okay, now I'm in aerospace and I'm the only black woman in my group. Luckily, there was a older woman who was, I think she was 2 or 3 years ahead of me. And she basically, she helped me get through because it became harder, right? Because there were some things I experienced, right? Whether it was sexism or racism, right? I don't know, and I didn't really get into it. I just knew I wasn't going to let things. I tried my hardest not to let things stop my progress and where I was trying to go. But then you had groups, the Black Graduate Student Association, that got me through Georgia Tech. Not my advisor, no, no. I needed those extra groups, right? I needed to see other people who said, yeah, I went through that too. And that was helpful, right? I needed to see other women who were like, okay, let's do this together. And so at NASA, right? I had to get mentors, people who could help me to realize, okay, you're in this new playing field. You're not in school anymore. So it's okay. You feel normal. This is normal to feel this way, or this is the way you would handle this, and so forth. So I had to have people, and they were men and women, right? And they were of many shades and colors, right? So I can't just say, only black people or whatever, only women helped me get to where I am today. No, it was a rainbow, if you will. But I will tell you, even to this day, right? And things have gotten a bit better, but it also depends on what room I'm in, right? I look a bit younger than I am, right? And even to this day, sometimes I'm in a meeting, right? And this can be wherever. And my voice isn't as loud. I'm not the loudest voice in the room. I might have a great idea, but it might take some time for my voice to be heard. Okay? And that's to this day, right? Or the way I solve problems is not the way that maybe a traditional engineer might solve it. I need pictures. I need to show a visual. I need to make the numbers, I need to convert the numbers into something visual. And that's my way of understanding. That's my way of showing, you know, pretty much explaining what my idea is. And I realize that sometimes, although it's different, sometimes you have to explain, you have to basically explain, yourself in a way that might take other people time to get it. And sometimes they might not give you that time, if that makes sense. Right? They say a picture is worth 1,000 words, but some people are just used to seeing numbers or whatever, following a certain way. Like the analytical brain will take you equations, write it out, the math says this. Okay, but what does it look like? And how do we explain this to the public? Right? Who cares about what we're doing if nobody understands it? Right? So there are a lot of things I just kind of unpacked there, but I think overall, what I'm saying is you need more women in these fields, right? From the imposter syndrome and everything that you experience in a male dominated field, it still exists today.
I related to a lot of that from the fields that I've come in, and that experience. I mean, that makes me really curious about, when you are sometimes the first or only person who looks like you in some of these, you know, uh, rarefied spaces, in some of the rooms that you are in. How do you sustain and fortify yourself, creatively, spiritually, otherwise? Or, I mean, you did just speak of mentorship and peer mentorship and community. What are the things that really have sustained you in this journey through being, often the first and only in these spaces? What are the things that have sustained you through all of this?
Yeah. I'm not religious, but I am a spiritual person. I think there's a difference. I am very spiritual. And so there's this thing that exists inside me that helps me to look beyond, what I could see with my eyes. And there's this thing about me that I want my life to count. So this is important to me. So the day-to-day things, it's like, okay, well, this is temporary. Everything is temporary in the long run. So how much of this temporary thing, are you going to allow to kind of pretty much dictate how you feel about everything and your feelings and these types of things? So that's one thing. And then um, I think about, the fact that I feel like I've been put here for a reason, and I feel like I'm living it out. And so it's not difficult because I feel like, and it might sound crazy, but I feel like I've been through a lot, and I feel like now it's like the universe is on my side, and things are making decisions about what to do and where to go. It's almost like things are just like opening up for me, and it's making things very easy. So I feel like I'm living out my purpose, and I feel like I'm being led in some way. Right? So that's one thing. Now, NASA, I work at NASA Goddard in Greenbelt, and I will tell you, my experience working there overall has been, I mean, it's in my experience, it's been very liberal. So you're working with people who want to be there. You're working with people who, at the end of the day, they care about this mission. They care about the mission. Can you help us, make this mission successful? Right? If you have the skills, let's get it done. I have, like I said, I work for a great branch. And so I have, like I said, many mentors inside and outside of the branch. But if I have trouble solving a problem, I know I could go to someone who won't care about, what color I am or these things, or that I'm a woman, right? I have people who are older than me there who, they've seen me pretty much grow up there. So, and they've helped me to develop some of the skills that I have right now as an engineer. And so I try to stay close to those people, right? Um, the people who, I've had experiences with inside of work, outside of work, um, even in pursuing my degrees, I will tell you, it was in the academic institution that I experienced the most of, again, what I would call the, I don't know, like sexism or racism. It was definitely in like the educational institutions. And so that's why I have this heart for young women who are going through any type of STEM discipline, right? Any field, or just in general where there are more, is more male dominant, right? Um, you know, again, like even in like I was pursuing a PhD, and I was pursuing a PhD in science, in the sciences, and my background is engineering, and so there's totally two different ways of thinking, but there's also a different culture in the sciences, right? And so one professor saw that I was basically working full time at NASA and I was pursuing a PhD, and she saw there was some background information that I just didn't have, right? Because I didn't come from the sciences. That woman would get on the phone with me, help me study for the qualifying exam. Like she literally, right? She was probably the only, yeah, she was one of the women who was on the way to retirement, right? So she'd been there for a while, but she took it upon herself and she saw that one of her students needed a little bit of extra because, and I will forever be grateful to that woman. But I ended up not getting a PhD. And there were some reasons for that, and again, this is the point that a lot of women still face some of these things. And I didn't finish the degree. I passed the qualifying exam, but I didn't get the degree because I realized all of the stress and everything that was causing me, it was either my mental health or I get this PhD and then realize it's just a couple letters behind my name. So again, like this is why I do what I do. So is there a way to continue opening doors for women so that, and people of color, right, so that we could share these experiences, but not just share them, but make sure they don't continue to happen. So yeah.
That's incredible. I mean, what having another woman like that take it upon herself to try to bolster your knowledge base, your career, and just support you,
Yes.
knowing full well, if she's on her way to retirement, clearly she had been there
Mm-hmm.
and seen some shit, and I think about, all that you aim to do with Grown Space Club and how clearly that carries that forward. How is it for you to connect with young women, Black girls, girls of color,
Mm-hmm.
who have this articulated dream of space, and you are there where they want to be,
Mm-hmm.
or you share that dream of this, what can we bring to the cosmos? What can we bring to the field?
Mm-hmm.
How can we expand our realm, our sense of being, all this imagination with space? How does it feel to connect with that for you?
If I could express it in like one word, it would be fulfilling. Sometimes I don't know who gets more out of the interaction, whether it's me or the kids, right? Because I get, there are certain things you do in life that drain you, right? So you try not to spend that much time doing those things. But every time I'm interacting with the kids, especially, a kid that you just described, a kid that already has the interest and they just need a bit of guidance, or they need you to point here or there and just say, oh, why don't you try that? Why don't you try that? Right? This lights up my world. It gives me energy, and it makes me want to do more. Right? So when I see a kid, right, I'm thinking of the younger version of myself who was always curious and I just needed somebody to, like the art teacher, to say, how about you try that? Right? But I don't want to wait till these kids get to the 12th grade. I want to start them off early because these kids are so smart. They have technology, like they're so curious. And, at the same time, I know COVID did a little bit of damage to some, as far as just on the educational side of things. Um, and so we want to make sure that, like, we don't lose the kids who maybe are not as inspired anymore, right? Because they went through, whatever, the pandemic and things like this. So it's like I want to inspire these kids. That is the point. But I also want them to have fun and realize that you can be inspired, have fun, and have a positive impact on the world around you. So that's literally what everything we do at Girl in Space Club is about. Like, we want to inspire them. Everybody doesn't have to be a techie. Everybody doesn't have to dwell in the STEM world. That's not what we're after. We're after just inspiring kids to go after their dreams, giving them the tools, right? If they go through our educational programming, we're giving them the tools to be able to use their creativity, couple them with a little bit of STEM kind of concepts, and be able to bring what you thought of in your imagination, bring that thing to reality in the form of a prototype, whatever that means. And so the space travel suit, the flight suit, right? That's inspiration for them to say, okay, if I learn these skills, these are the types of things I could do. I could build a flight suit that's unlike any other flight suit because it allows, first of all, it's fitted to the woman's body, but it also allows you to go to the bathroom without taking the whole thing off. Like, we've been wearing flight suits for how many years, decades, and nobody ever thought to make the suit such that you can go to the bathroom without taking it off. No one ever thought about how difficult it is for women to go to the bathroom in a flight suit. Again, this is why we need more women in these fields who are designing things that are keeping women in mind.
I think one of the things that's so salient and so beautiful about all that you are trying to do is very quietly outlined, literally in the title, Girl in Space Club. You know, club, you are in a community.
Mm-hmm.
We are going to envision being in community with other girls about this idea, and space being infinite, being new frontier, being a place where you can be self-defined. You can, all that space can even bring into this, concept of just this title.
Yeah.
But Girl in Space Club it says to me, imagine yourself with other girls and women in space. Imagine yourself forward.
Yes, absolutely.
Why is that so important that we do that? That girls imagine themselves with other women and girls, in league with other women and girls as they think of space. Why was it important for all of those things to just be in the title?
Yes. It was important because, for some of the things I already mentioned, you know, I think we have in the past, we've done a disservice to young girls by trying to put them in categories. This is for girls, and even for boys, right? This is for boys, this is for girls. And what happens is, if a little boy or a little girl finds themselves liking some of the stuff that the girls are supposed to be for girls, and vice versa, then that could do a lot to a kid, right? The kid could do, pretty much go their entire life doing what they're quote unquote supposed to do and fit into this box, right? And be miserable. We know we between the two of us, we might know a lot of people who decided on a career or a path because, okay, maybe that was the path that I was told to do. I really didn't want to do tech. I really wanted to do design, but so forth. All right. So we find that when you, for instance, take that out of it and you're just saying, what do you want to do? Right? And you get the kids when they're young. Before you can kind of say, okay, this is for girls, this is for boys. And I honestly think the younger generation is just kind of scrapping away with all of this, which I love, right?
Yeah,
They,
they don't need our genres and they don't need our genders. Either
right,
one.
exactly. They're like, who cares? This is what I want to do. So I want to tap into that. Yes. Okay. So how about you try this? And as we call it Girl in Space Club, right? But we still do these activities with boys. We do it with everybody. It's totally inclusive. But we know if we don't put that Girl in Space Club and then we talk about space, I think automatically, there's this image that comes to mind. Oh, robotic competitions and so forth. We have to compete. We have to be a techie mindset. No, you can bring your lipstick. You can bring whatever. You can bring everything with you, and we're just going to focus on having a safe place, a collaborative space where and I think that's something that girls do naturally. We like to talk, we like to collaborate, we like to discuss ideas. And so this is a space where we can do that, right? And we can do that and be, the people who are creating and using STEM at the same time. So just drawing more girls in to really be able to do what we normally do, but apply it in the world of space, or apply it just kind of like with a little STEM involved, right? And not feeling like, okay, well, we're doing STEM, it's male dominated. Not a Girl in Space Club is not here, right? So this is where you can go and you could do STEM, you could do design, right? Again, and just not feel like, you know, you're the only, right? And that expands beyond just being the girl, right?
Sabrina, so much of what you've said is just really and truly about invitation and creating this beautiful, inclusive path. And it seems very much to me about creating the path that you didn't necessarily have, but
Mm-hmm.
also taking these things, community, mentorship, that little push to see yourself in this space. What, I know this is like the big question, but for the girls watching this who maybe are very interested in design, who are interested in, they're making art, they're like you were as a teenager, constantly drawing. What do you want them to think about when they see you in this possibility and this possibility that your example gives them? What would you like them to take from your example, I guess?
I want them to take away, I think the takeaway would be anything is possible, and most likely, anything is possible, but you got to work hard for it, right? You got to want it, basically. There are people, there are tools, there's technology out here that will probably make things pretty easy for you to learn a new concept or, try something out, right? You have 3D printers, you have everything the things that kids have today, I wish I had as a kid, right? Like, but I would just say overall, like, anything is possible, and I would encourage them to dream big. Don't No dream is too big to try, right? And um, yeah, those are like my two big things: dream big, and anything is possible. And I just imagine if I kind of had a stimulating art or girl in space club when I was in elementary school. I joke with people and I say I could have been the female Elon Musk or something like this.
Please don't be the female Elon Musk. He is just plenty. He is plenty, Sabrina.
Not in his totality, but
Yes.
done with SpaceX is what I mean.
Yeah.
You know what
I
I
know. I'm sorry. What a part. Sabrina, final question. Maybe this is a dumb one, but just play along. Sabrina Thompson, exiting some sort of, Mars lander. What is your walk-on music? What is the Sabrina Thompson theme song as you are like hopping onto some new planet? Like, give it to me. What is the anthem?
mean? So the song that's in my head right now is Janelle Monáe's "Float."
Perfect. Perfect.
Yeah.
Hell of a theme song. Hell of a theme song.
Yeah.
Sabrina, thank you for joining me in conversation today. It has been such an honor to get to know you and your brain and your inspirations for Kickstarter Women Creators series. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.